Listen to me with the full attention of your spirit, because this is not a casual message. This is not a motivational talk you can nod at and forget. This is a moment of divine interruption. There are moments when God does not whisper, God does not suggest, God does not negotiate. There are moments when God speaks with urgency, with weight, with a demand that shakes the inner foundations of a person's life. This is one of those moments. Time is moving faster than most people realize. The calendar is not just turning pages, it is closing doors. And before the door of 2026 opens, God is calling His people to a serious, uncompromising cleansing. Not of buildings, not of titles, not of appearances, but of the body itself. Because the body is the instrument through which destiny is executed. If the instrument is polluted, the sound is distorted. If the vessel is contaminated, the flow is hindered. God said, clean these three body parts, because what is coming cannot be carried by an unclean vessel. Many people think spiritual delay comes from lack of opportunity, lack of connections, lack of money, or lack of talent. But God showed me that the greatest delays are caused by internal pollution. You can be gifted and still blocked. You can be chosen and still stagnant. You can pray and still not move forward, because God does not pour new wine into unclean vessels. He waits, He watches, He gives time for repentance, time for adjustment, time for cleansing. And now that time has become very short. What God is preparing to release after 2026 will require clarity, purity, discipline, and alignment. This is not about perfection. This is about obedience. This is not about outward religion. This is about inward surrender. God is not impressed by loud declarations when the body is silently rebelling against His will. The first body part God commanded to be cleaned is the eyes. The eyes are not innocent windows, they are gates. What you allow through your eyes determines what enters your soul, shapes your imagination, and programs your future. Many people are praying for divine direction while their eyes are feeding on confusion. They're asking God for vision while their eyes are addicted to distraction. God says the eyes have been polluted with images that weaken faith, inflame desire, and dull spiritual sensitivity. You cannot look at chaos every day and expect peace to dominate your heart. You cannot stare at corruption and expect purity to grow inside you. The eyes are powerful. They were designed to perceive truth, recognize divine movement, and focus on purpose. But when the eyes are undisciplined, they become tools of sabotage. God is calling for a radical cleansing of what you watch, what you consume visually, what you linger on when no one is watching. This is not about being extreme. This is about being serious. Some of the things you call harmless entertainment are slowly eroding your spiritual authority. They are shaping your desires in ways that conflict with your destiny. God says your eyes must be retrained to look upward instead of outward, to focus instead of wander, to discern instead of indulge. When the eyes are cleansed, the mind becomes clearer. When the eyes are purified, faith becomes sharper. Many people have lost their spiritual hunger, not because God stopped moving, but because their eyes became full of noise. God is saying, clean your eyes, because where you are going requires focus, and where you are going demands vision that has not been contaminated by the patterns of this world. The second body part God commanded to be clean is the mouth. The mouth is not just for speaking, it is for creating. Words are not empty sounds. Words are carriers of power, intention, and spiritual substance. God formed the world through words, and He placed that same creative ability inside human speech. That is why the mouth must be guarded, disciplined, and purified. Many people are praying blessings while their mouths are releasing curses. They are asking God for life while constantly speaking death over themselves, their families, their future, and their calling. God says the mouth has been polluted with complaints, negativity, bitterness, exaggeration, and careless speech. What you speak consistently, you eventually experience. The mouth reveals what dominates the heart. You cannot speak fear every day and expect courage to rise. You cannot speak doubt every day and expect faith to grow. God is calling His people to a cleansing of language, tone, intention, and confession. This means removing gossip that poisons relationships, removing criticism that weakens unity, removing self-degrading words that shrink identity. God says before 2026, your mouth must come into agreement with heaven, not just when you are in public, but when you are alone. Not just in prayer, but in daily conversation. Not just in crisis, but in routine. When the mouth is cleansed, alignment begins. Your words begin to support what God is building instead of tearing it down. Your declarations begin to open doors instead of reinforcing walls. God says He is listening more closely now, not because He is suspicious, but because He is preparing to act. And when He acts through aligned mouths. He acts through people whose words reflect trust, obedience, and reverence. Clean your mouth, God says, because the next season will require you to speak with authority, and authority cannot flow through a polluted tongue. The third body part God commanded to be cleaned is the hands. The hands represent action, labor, habits, and daily conduct. You can see clearly, you can speak correctly, but if your hands are engaged in compromise, delay will still follow you. God says many people have clean intentions, but dirty actions. They love righteousness in theory, but tolerate corruption in practice. The hands are involved in what you touch, what you take, what you build, and what you destroy. God is calling for a cleansing of how you earn, how you interact, how you handle responsibility, and how you treat others when no one is watching. This is not about dramatic public sin. This is about subtle disobedience, cutting corners, justifying small compromises, doing what is convenient instead of what is right. God says the hands must be washed of dishonesty, manipulation, laziness, and double standards. You cannot build a future of integrity with hands trained in shortcuts. You cannot expect divine favor to rest on work that is done without reverence. God is watching how you work, how you serve, how you honor commitments. He is not impressed by speed if it sacrifices righteousness. He is not impressed by success if it is built on compromise. When the hands are cleansed, productivity becomes purpose-driven, effort becomes fruitful, labor becomes meaningful. God says the next phase will reward clean hands, not clever hands, faithful hands, not flashy hands, obedient hands, not aggressive hands. Clean your hands, God says, because what you are about to touch will determine generations after you. This call to cleansing is not meant to produce fear. It is meant to produce focus. God is not threatening, He is preparing. He is not rejecting, He is refining. Before every major shift, God always cleans the vessel. Before elevation, there is purification. Before expansion, there is discipline. Many people want the promise, but resist the process. They want the blessing, but avoid the adjustment. God says the delay you age, I've been frustrated by, was not punishment. It was mercy. He was giving you time to clean what needed to be cleaned before acceleration would cause damage. Understand this deeply. God is not asking you to clean these things by your own strength alone. He is asking for willingness, honesty, and surrender. When you decide to obey, divine strength follows. When you choose alignment, grace begins to work. But if you ignore this call, you will find yourself spiritually exhausted, emotionally confused, and constantly starting over. Not because God abandoned you, but because you refused preparation. The year ahead is not ordinary. God is repositioning people. He is separating those who are serious from those who are casual, those who treat Him as a priority from those who treat Him as an option. This cleansing of the eyes, the mouth, and the hands is not symbolic. It is practical. It will affect what you watch, what you say, and what you do every single day. And through those daily decisions, destiny will either open or remain locked. God says, do not delay obedience. Do not negotiate with conviction. Do not wait for a crisis to change what you already know needs to be addressed. The call is clear because the time is urgent. What God is preparing to entrust after 2026 will require spiritual maturity, not emotional impulse. It will require consistency, not intensity. It will require vessels that can carry weight without breaking. There are people listening whose spirits are burning right now, not with fear, but with recognition. You know this message is not for someone else, it is for you. You know exactly where your eyes have wandered, where your mouth has compromised, where your hands have drifted. And God is not condemning you, He is inviting you into alignment, inviting you into readiness, inviting you into a future that cannot be sustained by old habits. God says, if you will clean what He has shown you, He will release what He has promised you. If you will take this seriously, He will take you seriously. If you will honor His instruction, He will accelerate your journey. But if you treat this lightly, you will keep circling the same mountains, repeating the same lessons, asking the same questions year after year. This is not about becoming religious. This is about becoming available. Clean eyes that can see opportunity instead of distraction. Clean mouths that can speak life instead of limitation. Clean hands that can build instead of betray. God is not looking for impressive people. He is looking for obedient ones. And obedience always begins with cleansing. Right now, this moment is not passing you by accidentally. God arranged this encounter because He wants you ready, not rushed, prepared, not pressured, aligned, not anxious. The clock is moving, but grace is still available. The door is narrowing, but access is still open. Clean what He has asked you to clean, and you will step into a season where effort produces results, prayer produces movement, and faith produces evidence, because a clean vessel does not struggle to carry what it was designed to hold. And God is very intentional about what He entrusts to those who take His word seriously and respond without delay. God is not interested in surface level agreement. He is searching for inner transformation. There are people who hear divine instruction and immediately begin to measure how much of it they can obey without being inconvenienced. But God does not negotiate with partial surrender. He responds to wholehearted alignment. When He speaks about cleansing, He is speaking about restoring order to what has drifted into disorder. Disorder is expensive in the spirit. It costs clarity, it costs peace, it costs momentum. And most people do not realize how much energy they are losing every day simply because their inner life is disorganized. God says the reason many feel tired, even when they rest, is because they are carrying internal conflict. Their actions are not aligned with their beliefs. Their words are not aligned with their prayers, and their vision is not aligned with their purpose. Cleansing removes that friction. When alignment returns, strength returns. There is a principle that governs spiritual movement. Whatever you refuse to confront will eventually confront you. God, in His mercy, confronts early so destruction does not come later. He exposes before He allows collapse. That is why this call is coming now, not after loss, not after regret, not after irreversible consequences. God is saying, do not wait for pain to teach you what obedience could teach you peacefully. Clean the body parts He has named, because they are the access points through which influence flows. Influence from the world enters through the eyes. Influence over the future exits through the mouth. Influence on the environment is exercised through the hands. When these three are aligned, a person becomes stable, effective, and trustworthy in the sight of God. Some people wonder why they keep receiving opportunities they are not ready for, or blessings they cannot sustain. God answers, capacity is not proven by desire, it is proven by discipline. You can desire greatness and still lack the structure to carry it. God does not measure readiness by enthusiasm. He measures it by consistency. The cleansing of the eyes develops discipline of focus. The cleansing of the mouth develops discipline of speech. The cleansing of the hands develops discipline of action. Together, they form a life that can handle increase without implosion. God is far more concerned with who you become than with what you receive, because what you receive will eventually bow to who you are. There is also something deeply prophetic about the body. God created the human being as a unified expression of intention. When one part is out of alignment, the whole system compensates, and compensation always leads to strain. God says many people are compensating spiritually. They pray louder to cover inconsistent behavior. They declare more to compensate for undisciplined thought patterns. They stay busy to avoid confronting inner emptiness. But God is not fooled by activity. He sees beyond movement and examines alignment. He says, slow down long enough to clean what needs cleaning, because speed without direction only leads to exhaustion. Another dimension God revealed is this: cleansing is preparation for trust. Trust is not given based on potential alone. It is granted based on proven stewardship. When God entrusts influence, resources, authority, or responsibility, He looks for vessels that will not contaminate what He gives them. Clean eyes protect vision. Clean mouths protect truth. Clean hands protect integrity. These are not optional virtues. They are prerequisites for trust. God does not entrust tomorrow to people who are careless with today. That is why He insists on cleansing before promotion. Not because He is restrictive, but because He is protective. God also says this cleansing is not only personal, it is generational. What you tolerate in yourself becomes permission for those who follow you. Children do not learn values primarily from instruction. They learn from observation. Communities do not shift because of slogans. They shift because of examples. When God calls you to clean your eyes, He is also protecting the vision of those who watch you. When He calls you to clean your mouth, He is safeguarding the emotional atmosphere of those who hear you. When He calls you to clean your hands, He is securing the moral foundation of those who depend on you. Obedience always reaches further than the individual. There is a misconception that cleansing limits freedom. In truth, it restores it. The most restricted people are not the disciplined ones, they are the addicted ones. Addiction to distraction, addiction to approval, addiction to comfort, addiction to compromise. God says discipline is not punishment, it is training for freedom. When your eyes are disciplined, you are no longer controlled by impulse. When your mouth is disciplined, you are no longer trapped by regret. When your hands are disciplined, you are no longer enslaved to habits that produce shame. Cleansing breaks cycles. It ends patterns that have followed families for generations. It draws a line where chaos stops and order begins. God is also addressing identity through this call. Many people have allowed their sense of self to be shaped by what they consume, what they say repeatedly, and what they do habitually. Over time, behavior becomes belief, and belief becomes identity. God says, cleanse these areas so identity can be restored to its original design. You are not what you have watched. You are not what you have spoken in moments of fear. You are not what you have done in seasons of weakness, but you will become what you repeatedly choose going forward. Cleansing is choosing again. It is realignment with truth. It is the courage to say, this will not define me anymore. There is also an urgency in God's voice because time multiplies consequence. What you ignore today does not remain neutral tomorrow, it grows. Distraction grows into confusion. Careless words grow into broken trust. Small compromises grow into hardened patterns. God says, address it while it is still small enough to remove without tearing everything apart. This is wisdom. This is mercy. This is foresight. God sees where the road leads long before the traveler does, and He warns not to restrict the journey, but to preserve the destination. As this cleansing takes place, something powerful happens internally. Spiritual sensitivity returns. Many people say they cannot hear God clearly anymore. God says the issue is not distance, it is interference. When the eyes are overloaded, the inner voice becomes quiet. When the mouth is constantly negative, faith becomes muted. When the hands are engaged in compromise, conviction becomes dull. Cleansing removes interference. It clears the signal. Suddenly, guidance becomes clearer. Decisions become easier. Peace becomes steadier. Not because circumstances change immediately, but because alignment has been restored. God also emphasizes that cleansing is an act of worship. True reverence is not only expressed in words, it is expressed in obedience. When you choose to guard your eyes, you honor God with your attention. When you choose to discipline your speech, you honor God with your voice. When you choose to act with integrity, you honor God with your strength. Worship that does not change behavior is incomplete. God desires devotion that reaches the body, not just the lips. When the body is aligned, worship becomes a lifestyle, not an event. There will be resistance to this message, not from the outside, but from within. The old self resists change because it is comfortable with familiarity, even when familiarity is destructive. God says, do not mistake resistance for confirmation that change is wrong. Resistance often appears when transformation is near. The discomfort you feel is not loss, it is shedding. It is the friction of growth. Stay committed through it. Clean anyway. Choose alignment anyway. Obey anyway. Because beyond the resistance is relief, and beyond the discipline is peace. God is not asking for instant perfection. He is asking for sincere direction. A life pointed toward. Obedience will receive help along the way, but a life that refuses correction will eventually face consequences alone. God is patient, but patience should not be confused with permission. His silence is not approval. It is often space for repentance. Do not misinterpret delay as indifference. God cares deeply about where you are headed, which is why He speaks clearly now. As this cleansing continues, confidence will change. Not the loud, fragile confidence that depends on validation, but a quiet, stable confidence rooted in integrity. You will know where you stand. You will know what you carry. You will know what you will not compromise. That kind of confidence cannot be shaken by trends, pressure, or opinion. God builds that confidence in clean vessels because they do not fear exposure. They have already dealt with what needed to be dealt with in private. God is forming people who will not panic in pressure, who will not collapse under responsibility, who will not become corrupted by access. This formation begins with cleansing. Before strategy, purity. Before expansion, discipline. Before visibility, alignment. God's order never changes. Those who respect it move forward steadily. Those who ignore it keep starting over. Let this moment mark a decision, not an emotional reaction, but a settled resolve. A resolve that says, I will guard what enters me, I will honor what leaves me, and I will sanctify what I do. God responds to that kind of resolve with guidance, with strength, with favor that does not fade. The future God is unveiling requires people who are clear, steady, and whole. Clean eyes that see truth. Clean mouths that release life. Clean hands that build what will last. God is also drawing attention to the power of silence because cleansing is not only about removal, it is about restraint. There are seasons when God instructs His people to speak less, react less, explain less, and listen more. Silence is not weakness, it is mastery. A person who can remain silent under provocation has already won half the battle. God says many have polluted their mouths, not only with wrong words, but with unnecessary words. Every word carries weight. Every reaction shapes atmosphere. Before 2026, God is teaching His people the discipline of silence so that when they do speak, heaven backs the sound. Silence sharpens discernment. Silence exposes motives. Silence gives space for wisdom to rise. Clean mouths are not loud, they are precise. God is also addressing the inner posture behind the hands. It is possible to do the right thing with the wrong heart. God says He is not only cleaning actions, He is purifying intention. Why you do what you do matters just as much as what you do. Actions driven by pride will eventually collapse. Actions driven by fear will eventually exhaust you. But actions driven by reverence create endurance. God is teaching His people to work without craving applause, to serve without demanding recognition, to give without keeping score. This is a higher level of cleansing where motivation is surrendered along with behavior. When intention is purified, effort becomes lighter and results become lasting. God is also confronting the hidden agreements people have made with limitation. Some have silently accepted cycles they were never meant to live in. They have said, "This is just how I am," or "This is how it has always been," not realizing they were speaking confinement into existence. God says cleansing the mouth also means breaking agreement with inherited weakness. You are not bound to repeat what you observed. You are not obligated to carry what others refuse to confront. When you cleanse your speech, you reclaim authority over direction. God responds when people speak with humility and conviction, refusing to define themselves by past failure. Another dimension God is revealing is the relationship between cleansing and timing. Timing is not random, it responds to readiness. Many people feel behind in life, not realizing that God has been protecting them from premature arrival. Arrival without readiness leads to regret. God delays not to deny, but to develop. Cleansing accelerates timing because it removes the internal resistance that slows progress. When the eyes are focused, the path becomes clearer. When the mouth is aligned, decisions become firmer. When the hands are clean, momentum increases. God is not slow, He is precise. God is also restoring sensitivity to conscience. Conscience is not meant to accuse constantly, it is meant to guide gently. But when ignored repeatedly, it becomes quiet. God says many people stopped hearing internal warnings because they trained themselves to override them. Cleansing reawakens conscience. It sharpens awareness. It brings back that subtle inner check that says, stop, wait, choose differently. That inner guidance is one of God's greatest gifts, and it thrives in clean environments. When conscience is restored, fewer mistakes are made, not because temptation disappears, but because discernment strengthens. God is also emphasizing that cleansing requires separation, not isolation, but intentional boundaries. You cannot live clean in an environment that celebrates contamination. This does not mean withdrawal from society. It means discernment in connection. God says some relationships drain clarity. Some conversations weaken resolve. Some environments normalize compromise. Wisdom is knowing when to step back, when to limit access, when to protect growth. Boundaries are not rejection, they are protection. God honors those who honor what He is doing within them. There is also a refining of appetite taking place. Appetite is not just about food, it is about desire. What you crave reveals what rules you. God says cleansing the eyes, mouth, and hands will naturally recalibrate appetite. You will no longer crave what once controlled you. What fed distraction will lose its appeal. What fueled negativity will feel heavy. What encouraged compromise will feel uncomfortable. This is not loss, it is maturity. Growth always changes appetite. God is reshaping desire so that people want what sustains them, not what sedates them. God is also dismantling false urgency. Many people rush because they are afraid of missing out, but fear-driven urgency produces reckless decisions. God says true urgency is obedience without delay, not action without direction. Cleansing slows impulsive behavior and replaces it with intentional movement. When the body is aligned, urgency becomes purposeful. You move when God says move. You wait when God says wait. This kind of rhythm produces peace even in demanding seasons. God is also restoring joy through cleansing. Joy is not excitement, it is stability. Many have lost joy because inner conflict drained emotional energy. When your actions contradict your values, joy leaks. When your words oppose your prayers, joy weakens. When your focus is scattered, joy fades. Cleansing restores joy because it restores harmony. Harmony produces rest. Rest produces joy. God wants His people strong, not strained. Joy is strength, and strength flows from alignment. God is also teaching stewardship of the body itself. The body is not separate from spirituality, it is its carrier. How you treat your body affects clarity, endurance, and discipline. God says, neglect, excess, and disregard for physical health also impacts spiritual sensitivity. Cleansing the hands includes how you care for what you have been entrusted with. Balance is part of obedience. Rest is not laziness, it is wisdom. Decide. Thine is not harshness, it is respect. God honors those who steward their bodies with reverence, not obsession. God is also breaking the illusion that private behavior does not matter. Nothing is truly private before God. What you do in isolation shapes who you become in public. Cleansing is often most difficult in private because there is no applause, no accountability, no immediate reward, but God sees in secret. And what is cleansed in secret produces authority in public. Public influence is sustained by private integrity. God builds from the inside out, never the other way around. God is also reminding His people that cleansing is an ongoing posture, not a one-time event. It is daily awareness, daily correction, daily surrender, not obsession, but attentiveness. When something feels off, address it quickly. When conviction arises, respond immediately. Delay hardens resistance. Speed softens correction. God moves with those who respond quickly to His instruction. As this alignment deepens, fear will lose its grip. Fear thrives in disorder. It feeds on confusion and inconsistency. When life becomes ordered, fear starves. Clean eyes see possibility instead of threat. Clean mouths speak trust instead of panic. Clean hands act with wisdom instead of haste. God does not remove challenges. He removes fear's authority over those challenges. God is shaping people who will stand firm when others compromise, who will remain steady when others panic, who will stay faithful when others drift. This stability will not come from personality. It will come from purification. Clean vessels do not leak under pressure. They hold what they carry. They endure weight without cracking. Let this instruction settle deep, not as inspiration, but as transformation. God is near to those who respond, attentive to those who obey, and faithful to those who align. The cleansing He calls for is the doorway to the clarity you have been seeking, the peace you have been missing, and the strength you have been praying for. Now, this is the moment where the message stops being something you heard and becomes something you choose. God has spoken clearly, not to overwhelm you, but to awaken you. This is the hour to stop drifting, stop postponing, stop excusing what you already know needs to change. God is not asking you to become someone else. He is calling you back to who you were meant to be. The noise has been loud, the pace has been fast, the distractions have been endless, but even now God is near, steady, patient, and precise. He is calling you into alignment, into clarity, into a life that is not divided within itself. Examine your life honestly, not with shame, but with courage. Look at where your eyes have been feeding, where your mouth has been shaping reality, where your hands have been investing energy. Do not rush past conviction, sit with it. Conviction is not condemnation, it is direction. It is God placing His hand on your future and saying, this matters, this choice matters, this adjustment matters. What you do with this moment will echo far beyond today. Small obediences compound into powerful outcomes. One decision to cleanse becomes a doorway to renewed purpose. Renew your commitment, not to comfort, but to truth, not to approval, but to obedience, not to habit, but to transformation. Let this be the season where excuses lose their voice and conviction takes the lead. God is not distant from you. He is waiting for your agreement. When you align with Him, strength rises from places you thought were empty. Peace settles where anxiety once ruled. Direction becomes clearer where confusion once lingered. This is what happens when a life comes back into order. Walk closer to God, not in words alone, but in daily choices. Guard what enters you. Honor what comes out of you. Be intentional with what you do. Let reverence shape your routines. Let discipline protect your destiny. Let humility keep your heart open. You do not need to know every step ahead. You only need to obey the step in front of you. God reveals direction to those who walk, not to those who wait without obedience. Carry this call with seriousness and hope. Seriousness because alignment matters. Hope because change is possible now. God does not demand what He does not empower. If He has called you to cleanse, He will give you strength to follow through. If He has stirred your heart, He will sustain your resolve. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are being prepared. Let today be remembered as the moment you chose clarity over confusion, obedience over comfort, purpose over distraction. Let your life become quieter, stronger, cleaner, and more focused. Let your eyes see what matters, your mouth speak what builds, and your hands do what honors God. This is the path of strength. This is the way of peace. This is the life that stands firm, walks steady, and moves forward with God.